Hey guys, welcome back to Day-to-Day Chess. You are on the first season up Sunday of 2016, which of course I've decided to dedicate to Paul Keres, given that this year marks the 100-year anniversary of his birth. As I mentioned in previous videos, Paul Keres was one of the top players in the world for about 30 years, from the middle of 1930s till about the middle of 1960s. A wonderful chess player, very dynamic style, but in the same time he has composed some very nice, in my opinion, chess endgames and studies as well. So I would like to share 3 of them with you today. The first one that I'm going to share, well, I already shared this position last year, in the last day of the year 2015, but of course for today I would like to discuss with you the solution of this study, and then there are 2 other positions that I'm going to be looking at today. So of course you will have the opportunity of pausing the video and solving it by yourself first before checking out the solutions, but this is the plan for today, so hopefully you're going to enjoy it. Let's start out with this position that some of you might already be familiar with. So the reason I chose this position and I thought it was so beautiful was the fact that in this position white has 3 pieces up: a rook, a knight, and a bishop, right? And technically, what should be so beautiful about a position like this, where you have so much material advantage? What could be beautiful about it? Well, what can be beautiful about it is the fact that the opponent has 2 pawns that are about to promote. Specifically, this h2 one, it just has 1 more square, right? So black's next move can be h1 queen. So that's what makes this position beautiful. For some of you who might not have liked it, I apologize. I got some negative feedback about this position, which I'm very surprised about. But hopefully after seeing this video, you will change your mind a little bit about this position. When you have so much material advantage, yet you cannot convert it, you have to find ways to make it a draw. That's what makes chess special. Because in any other sport, any other circumstances, maybe something similar would probably lead to a win. Yet in chess, you have this extra edge that even if you have material advantage, it does not necessarily mean that you're going to win the game. So starting out with this position, besides the fact that white has this extra material and black is about to promote, we also notice this king in h6 being pinned by the bishop, and at the same time kind of staying on a mate type of idea. But similarly, this king in h4 could potentially be a target of a stalemate. Not target, but could use the fact that this king in h4 is kind of trapped to create some stalemating position. So these 2 ideas are very important, and in general, when you have a position like this, it's a stalemate that you're thinking about in order to be able to save the position and make a draw. So let's see how the game goes. Well, the study. King g3 is the one and only move here in this position for white to save the game. And here black has various approaches, and the most natural one is of course h1 queen, right? That was the idea. Otherwise, white has all these extra pieces with which they're going to win. Some other possibility would be to play c2. The idea of this move is just to promote the queen in c1 in this case, and making sure there won't be any ways for white to stop black from promoting. And then of course there are other moves of black in this position that you can consider, but there should be all candidate moves that you get rid of in your calculation, because you notice pretty fast that black would be losing in those cases. So for example, if black would play here king takes g6, I think it would be obvious that white just captures, pawn takes, and now king takes h2. So we already took 1 pawn, and then the rook has been opened. Like Dr. Tarash was saying, it is very important to have your rooks mobile, and that's exactly what white did by capturing in f5. And now this rook will go to c4, stopping the pawn from promoting, and white is super winning. So that move definitely should be taken out of consideration pretty fast. Now other possibilities would be to play e5 here, but they are at least two ways for white to win this position. One would be playing rook h4 check, and after king takes g6, rook takes h2, and then the rook will come to h1, stopping that pawn from promoting. And then after e5, another possibility would be to just take in f5, and now threatening a bunch of mates, knight g8. Not immediately, but after king g4, stopping black from coming to g5, there will be those mates with knight g8, some rook h4, rook h5 mates. And let's just say in this position, black would think to promote to a queen, then they would just come rook h4 check, takes, and the mate is coming, either knight g4 or knight g8. So the fact that black will promote will not matter now. Okay, so I think it's quite clear, even after f5, if black captures in f4, we don't even care about capturing in h2. We simply go king g4 and the mate is coming next move. So all of these other moves, if you're not promoting or playing c2, all of the other moves for black are simply bad and black would be losing. So let's just check the most natural approach, h1 queen. Well, it was obvious the reason white moved the king here was to have this rook h4 check and capture black's queen immediately. And in this position, once again, you have to think about candidate moves for black. The most natural one is, of course, to play c2 to promote the next move. But there are other moves here for black as well, such as maybe king takes g6 would be a possibility. This would be probably the most normal possibility for black here, because otherwise white would find a way to stop the pawn. But even after king takes g6, white has a very simple way to stop this pawn from promoting by playing knight to d7. And next move, knight e5 check, knight d3, stopping that pawn from promoting. And if you think like you can be tricky and just say, well, yeah, you gave me a couple of checks, but once you come knight d3, I will simply take in e4, and my pawns are much stronger than your knight. Well, unfortunately, well, maybe they are, but I have other pieces on the board. So after e3, white can simply go king g3. You cannot take in f2 because I'll just capture back. And if you play e2 trying to promote, there's simply bishop b4. We should not forget that we have that extra bishop with white that's going to stop the pawn from promoting, and white is going to capture this pawn ASAP, pawns, both of them ASAP, and then simply win the game with two pieces up. So king g6 is not a good possibility for black, so black would continue c2, of course, like I said, with the idea of promoting. And here it is very important to see that this king can be getting on a stalemate position. And how is that? Well, we have to create that position. Right now, the king has lots of movements. And since white has no way to stop black from promoting c1, he has to come up with this stalemating idea. First, we're capturing in f5 because obviously he cannot promote because of knight g8 or knight g4 checkmate. So black is forced to capture back, and here we go knight g4 check. After knight g4 check, black has to take back. King takes g6 again would be bad because of knight e5 check, knight d3 stopping the pawn. So f takes g4, and in this position, bishop d6. And when black promotes to a queen, bishop f4 check, queen takes, stalemate, and draw. So we managed to reach the purpose of this position. Although, like I said, white had extra material, they had to fight for a draw, and here's how they got it. Now, what if black promotes to a bishop? Somebody asked me, and they didn't seem very happy about this position. Well, just think about it. Just king takes g4, black captures back in g6, and here we can just go bishop c5, just to be sure both our pawns will be well protected, and we're keeping this king from getting active. And then the next move, king takes f3, and we got from a position where we had rook, knight, and bishop up, but we were about to lose because black was ready to promote, to this position that's totally equal, bishop endgame. Why wouldn't this be a nice ending to the position that I showed you at the beginning? I think it is. So this is a draw. Okay, going back to the start, I was also mentioning to you, what if black doesn't promote h1? Because obviously they would see that there's rook h4, and all this line till the end and it's a draw, right? So let's say they would try to play here c2 in this position. And of course they could, but it doesn't seem very difficult for white to hold on to the position. For example, they can just take here in h2, which is, you know, something I would recommend to do. And when black promotes to a queen in this position, simply rook takes f3. This was the solution that I found, and I believe it's correct. After rook takes f3, we are not really looking at how to get stalemated, but rather how to use our pieces against the queen. So in this position, if black would play something like queen d1 and try to attack your rook, well, you shouldn't be worried because there are many opportunities for white to make a draw. One of them would be to just play rook g3, and black's king will never get out of here. And don't even dare to take in this position in e4, because if you do, there's simply bishop c5, and I think black can resign soon. So anyways, after rook g3, black can simply play some queen d4, attacking the knight, and if checking h5. And from what I can see, white can just hang on in here, king g1, for example, and the position is equal. So this is another good approach for black, but unfortunately the queen is not going to be stronger than the 3 pieces of white. And those 3 pieces are not just 3 pieces, bishop and knights, but rook, knight, and bishop. So definitely much stronger than black's queen. So black would have to fight for a draw in that position. They're better off going on for the stalemate. So this was my approach for that position. Now, I had another solution that I was looking at after rook takes f3. Let's say black plays queen d1 in this position. I think knight g8 works as well. And when you take, I take in f5 check, because black has to play king h7. If you're just thinking of taking in f5, you might be losing after knight e7 check and rook takes f5. My pieces are suddenly very well protected, and white should have big chances to win in this position. So that's why after e takes f5 check, black has to play king h7, and now king g2, protecting the rook. And then when you take my knight, I take in e6, and after being able to push e7, white should have no problem making a draw. So black probably would just have to go queen d5 and try to give some perpetual check. So this is my approach to this position. Now let's go on to another position. I really hope you enjoyed this solution. I mean, really, I think it's really amazing to have created such a position. Let's just go to the next position that I had here for you guys. This is more of a simple position, so I think everybody should be able to solve this pretty fast. It is white to move and make a draw once again. What's so special about the position? Well, if you are not going to try to make a draw here with white, you have to be very careful about queen g5 checkmate. So white has to be very careful not to get mated with this king in the middle of the board. And so white has to be very dynamic and find the best way to lead to a draw. And no checks are possible in this position that would work besides one. Queen takes a1 check. Black has to take back, and now bishop e5 check. The king has to go to a2, and in this position we have to start giving away our pieces in order to get stalemated. And we start by the knight, giving away the knight. Black is forced to capture in c1, and here bishop d5 check. And after king b1, we are simply repeating the position, and it is a draw. And if black is thinking to take queen takes d5, we got stalemated in the middle of the board. So that was one of the reasons why I chose this position, because it is rare that you see a stalemate in the middle of the board. In general, it's happening on the margin somewhere. And now one more thing, after bishop e4 check, what if black just thinks of giving away the queen now, saying that, okay, I give away the queen, but after you taking a2, now you don't have the perpetual anymore, and I have an exchange up. Well, yes, that's true, but white can continue bishop takes b5, attacking your rook, and if you just go somewhere, let's say rook a8, Now again, I've got the perpetual here, and if you don't go after bishop takes b5, if you're trying to find a way to promote, just say, you know what, take my rook, I'm gonna promote. How do you do it? You need to move the king first away from the pawn, and b1 won't work because again we have that perpetual. So if king b3, for example, here we can just take, and pushing the pawn won't help black, neither would bishop b2 because we can just capture, and bishop d3, and this position is a draw. So this was the second position that I wanted you to see. I hope you enjoyed this stalemate in the middle of the board and you solved it if you pause the video. And the last position that I had for you is this one. It is white to move and win in this position. I thought I should find a position that Paul Keres created where white is actually, well, one of the sides is actually winning, to kind of, you know, season up your Sunday in a nice way, you know, finishing up with a win. And here's the position. So hopefully you're going to pause the video and try to solve this. Okay, you are back, hopefully. And the solution is as follows. Knight c2 check. What was white's problem? Why is it so crazy for white to win this position? Well, because black might threaten b2, b1 queen, right, themselves. So we have to be very cautious, and we need to make sure everything is happening with tempo. So here, after knight c2 check, black has three moves. One of them is playing king a2. The other one is capturing the knight with the bishop, and the other one capturing the knight with the pawn. Well, you realize immediately that capturing the knight with the pawn makes no sense, because there won't be any possibility for black to have any threats of pushing the pawns to try to promote. So here, white, if they want, they can just go for the h-pawn, or they can try to go some queen c7, and then you know, have a mate after, let's say, you know, there's queen a7 mate threatened. And if you move the king or play bishop g8, if you play bishop g8, there's queen a7. No, sorry. If you play bishop g8 in this position, there's queen c3, queen c3, queen b2, and the same thing happens if you're playing king a2 in this position. I can still take in c3 and then mate in b2. So this is just useless for black, taking with a pawn. So let's check taking with the bishop, keeping the opportunity of playing b2 check, b1 queen. In this position, white has to find the correctest move, the most correct move in this position to win, because otherwise black will be playing b2, and that move is queen b8. Now if black plays b2, we take in c2, and then there's going to be mate. Whether you're promoting and I take, or whether I give you checkmate on the a file, it's just up to you. So after queen b8, if black tries to play bishop b1 first, saying, oh, I'll play b2 next move, well, unfortunately, you're just giving away the pawn. There's no point here for black. So bishop c2 can be taken out of consideration as well, same as b takes c2. And now the last move that we should consider is king a2. And now again, thinking, if you give me a check pretty much anywhere, I can push b2. But is it really pretty much anywhere? Of course not, because here white has this knight b4 double check. And what does black do? He has two opportunities once again, king a3 or king a1. King a3, after king a3, white is going to win this position after playing this very nice move, knight d3, stopping the push of b2, but in the same time kind of putting this king in a3 on mate. And after bishop takes d3, there's queen d6 check. It's something that white should have calculated a while back. And now when you go king a2, obviously we cannot make this move. This would be a big, big blunder for white, because after b2, black is going to win this. So after king a2, white has to find this very good move, queen d5, pinning the pawn, so you cannot push b2. and now also threatening queen a5 mate. And not only queen a5, but also queen a8. And black has no way to defend this, and white is winning. So very, very important. And after king d6, queen d6 check, if black goes king a4, well, we can go give another check, and then capture in c3, and white is winning. Now going back to knight c2 check, king a2, knight b4 check. If black goes king a1, hopefully you can see this beautiful continuation here for white. There's just one, not knight c2, knight b4, because then you're just repeating, but queen a2 check. The pawn has to take, and here you have to find only one move wins in this position, and that move is knight c6. The idea is to bring the knight to d4 to have double threat. Both b3 and c2 have mates, so black will not be able to stop those mates with their bishop. So even if they end up saying, oh, I can play bishop c2, well, I'll just take your bishop, and your pawn is really too far from the queen because you'll get mated. And after knight c6, there's no way for black to stop knight d4 and one of the two mates. That's all, folks. I really hope you liked these three positions and you were able to solve them as we went along. I will see you tomorrow for some more day-to-day chess games analysis. Have a wonderful week. Bye.